So you don't want a meaningless, soul-crushing job that's not contributing anything positive to the world. Or worse yet, feels like it doesn't serve any worthy purpose at all. In fact, some of you may have looked more closely and started to recognize the role that your job and company are actually playing in destroying the very future you're working so hard to prepare for. Well, what if you could earn your living addressing our major social and environmental challenges instead of doing work that perpetuates them? And without upholding so many of the negative elements of capitalism that make you feel so conflicted. These days, it's hard to completely separate our efforts to earn money from all of those harmful aspects of our economy. But we can certainly look for opportunities that pay us to do far more good than harm. We can start by taking inspiration from the Buddhist concept of right livelihood, which refers to honest and ethical work that doesn't harm others. As a green living and money coach, I take this a step further and encourage people to pursue regenerative right livelihood. Why regenerative? Well, sustainable is just that, sustaining and maintaining where we're at. But that's no longer enough. We need to restore, repair, rejuvenate, and regenerate our very depleted planet and the many depleted people and other creatures that make our homes on it. Given the state of the world and our planet, we need as many people as possible to participate in this DIY Green New Deal. That's a big part of what my co-authors and I wrote about in our book, Growing Free, Building the Life of Your Dreams Without Losing Your Soul or Destroying the Planet. My point with this video, though, isn't to make anybody feel bad who would like to, but for whatever reason isn't willing or able to pursue a more regenerative livelihood. I simply want to show those who are curious what's possible. So in today's video, I want to cover a few strategies that can help you bring more meaning into your current job or find a more meaningful alternative. I'll also be sharing a number of useful resources throughout this video that you may want to access later. So I've compiled them into a list of regenerative right livelihood resources you can access for free using the link in the description below. The first strategy is to increase your impact in a conventional job. Maybe you need to have a high-paying corporate or other steady job to pay off your student loans or just afford the rising cost of living. Or maybe you don't have the skills or experience yet to get a more ethical, socially conscious, or specialized job. That doesn't mean you can't bring your desire to make a difference into the workplace. Work for Climate is an organization that helps corporate professionals become effective climate leaders at work. But even if you don't work for a major corporation, that doesn't mean you can't encourage a greener workplace by suggesting energy-efficient upgrades, landscaping with native plants, or the creation of an on-site composting program, or taking advantage of an already existing one in your area. Another option for some of you may be to get involved in efforts to unionize your workplace. Organizing is one of the best things you can potentially do to create a better world right where you work. Your area likely has activists who would love to help you do this work. And now that DEI initiatives are being dismantled and defunded, it's more important than ever that we, the people, continue the anti-racism, anti-colonialism, and anti-oppression work in whatever even subtle ways we can at our workplaces. It's also worth noting that some of you out there may be able to do even more to turn your current job into a climate job. As the Project Drawdown team notes in their clunkily named Job Function Action Guide, which you can access on their website, beyond just workplace activism, some professions lend themselves well to being transformed into more of a climate job. For example, procurement professionals can leverage their purchasing power for climate action. They can work with and influence suppliers, help design products differently, and use good data to make procurement a force for climate action. Okay, so strategy number 2, getting a socially conscious job. So maybe you're ready to find more fulfilling work, but you aren't yet ready to forego a steady paycheck or health insurance, or a more structured lifestyle. Well, there are still a plethora of opportunities for you to find a more conventional job with benefits that does more good than harm. Even mainstream professions can be given a much more regenerative twist, like we see with the lawyers at the Sustainable Economies Law Center, where they're working to democratize land, labor, and law. And the financial advisors who joined the RAD Planners group that are trying to transform the financial services industry from a tool of oppression into a vehicle for justice. You may, however, find yourself feeling strongly compelled to seek employment with a mission-oriented organization, such as a nonprofit or a social enterprise. And if you're not familiar with that, a social enterprise is an innovative, mission-driven, for-profit entity that blends business and social advocacy to enact positive social change. Okay, but where to look for such jobs? Well, I have a few suggestions. Back in the day when I was searching for jobs like these, I used a number of job boards. One of them that's still active and popular is idealist.org. You can use this website to search for job openings by location, salary, and more. That's just one of many job boards now available, though, to help you find social impact jobs. And luckily, someone has now compiled all of them into this comprehensive Notion spreadsheet and made it available to everyone for free. While the majority of resources collected here are specific to climate-oriented jobs, there are still a number of job boards included here that are more generally focused on social impact career opportunities. If you're inclined to more cutting-edge and out-of-the-box opportunities, as well as some additional legwork, another idea would be to explore the position openings posted on the websites of the companies that have been selected over the years to participate in the Biomimicry Institute's Accelerator program. The Biomimicry Institute is doing super cool and impressive work supporting businesses and others looking to harness the wisdom of nature to solve today's biggest problems. Similarly, Project Drawdown advances science-based climate solutions, and their team compiled a list of 93 technologies and practices that can play a significant role in reducing concentrations of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Perusing these to see which solutions you find most compelling and in line with your interest and skill sets, and then researching which companies or nonprofits are leaders in these fields could steer you in the direction of potential employment opportunities or helpful internships. And the third strategy, embrace your inner entrepreneur. Given the unsustainable mindsets and practices that are entrenched throughout our society and workplaces, creating truly regenerative right livelihood for yourself involves a lot of out-of-the-box and less conventional thinking. It may also require you to become an entrepreneur. That wouldn't mean you have to quit your regular job right away or ever. You might choose a hybrid model where you pursue some regenerative business on the side temporarily or long term. Like entrepreneurship in general, regenerative entrepreneurship involves looking around and identifying the gaps in products and services that are currently available to people. Because regenerative solutions are so antithetical to our current ways of operating in the world, I frequently perceive opportunities for regenerative alternatives. For example, in my area, I have yet to find a handyman or handy person familiar with more eco-friendly products, materials, and techniques. Similarly, there's a huge gap here in the Florida building and contracting scene, with pretty much nobody incorporating passive cooling techniques into their new builds or restorations, or even aware of what passive cooling is and how it works. Ideally, the gap you identify coincides with your interest and skills. That's what happened in my case. I was trying to find ways to align my money and my lifestyle with my socially and environmentally conscious values. As I progressed in my journey, I realized I wasn't alone in wanting to design a more financially resilient and climate resilient life that did as little as possible to further enrich greedy billionaires. Eventually, I started sharing what I was learning and turned it all into a regenerative right livelihood income stream. But let's look at a few other examples of regenerative entrepreneurs. One is Corinne Helbig, an Australian permaculturalist who's pieced together a number of green income streams that allow her to work a flexible schedule that suits her need for a flexible lifestyle. First, she runs an ethical digital marketing business. She also writes a regular column on sustainable living for The Guardian and teaches people how to practice permaculture in urban settings on social media and through in-person classes. Another entrepreneur that regularly inspires me is Zach Weiss, founder of Water Stories. He built a business around restoring the health of watersheds and ecosystems and teaching these valuable skills to others. And how about a blast from the past example? Even though Radiator Charlie, as he was known, didn't have a background in plant breeding, he was able to figure out how to breed together the 4 biggest tomatoes he could find until they produced a consistently huge tomato. And he had the marketing skills to build a customer base for this tomato. People would drive from hours away to his Radiator radiator shop to buy this special, highly desirable plant capital that only Charlie could provide. Charlie's tomato came to be known as the mortgage lifter because the income he was able to earn from it was enough to pay off the mortgage on his radiator shop in just a few years. All of these regenerative entrepreneurship examples highlight what my growing free co-authors and I refer to in our book as transformative investments. These are assets like skills, specialized knowledge, and equipment that will generate income as well as make a positive contribution to people and planet. That may involve investing time and money into acquiring assets such as permaculture, digital marketing, and writing skills like Corinne Helbig did. It might be investing in the knowledge, skills, equipment, and apprenticeships that have made Zach Weiss's water restoration work possible, or the right tomato seeds, tools, salesmanship, and real estate that made Radiator Charlie's success possible. If you're interested in pursuing regenerative entrepreneurship, but aren't even sure what kind of work you could possibly do, the donation-based Find Your Eco Niche mini course developed by Heather Jo Flores might be a helpful place to start. Another option that involves more time and money is the Cultivating Regenerative Livelihoods class offered by Gaia Education and taught by renegade economist Della Duncan and sustainability educator Sylvia de Blasio. Lastly, I just want to note that greenwashing even exists in the green jobs realm. Getting someone to buy an eco-friendly product to replace a perfectly good product they already had often isn't regenerative or even sustainable. That's because there are often lots of resources that had to be harvested to produce, market, and ship that eco-friendly product. And while solar and other renewable energy options offer some better solutions, at this stage they're still heavily dependent on fossil fuels. Some solar companies are even pushing really hard to infiltrate rural areas to buy up valuable farmland that we very much need to grow food and other crops, to instead turn them into solar farms. And even nonprofits are subject to mission creep and getting sucked into the nonprofit industrial complex. I remember hearing about a women's health nonprofit that only offered a very short maternity leave. Contradictions and imperfections exist. I regularly question if my own work accomplishes enough to offset the larger digital footprint I've created for myself by posting videos on YouTube and other social media platforms. At the end of the day, regenerative right livelihood isn't about finding the perfect pure job or business that checks every box. It's about making choices that move us closer to a world that's more just, resilient, and life-affirming. Whether that means reshaping the role you already have, seeking out more socially conscious employment, or experimenting with the regenerative side hustle, every step counts. What matters most is that you're aligning your work with your values and contributing, even in small ways, to restoring what's been depleted. If more of us do this, we not only create livelihoods worth having, but also build communities and economies capable of sustaining us through these challenging times. So don't forget, I've included a link in the description below to those regenerative right livelihood resources. And now that you've got some ideas for how you can participate in this DIY Green New Deal, be sure to watch this video next so you'll know how to build on all of this to design that financially resilient and fulfilling life for yourself.